On album form, on the wax, it's 4 albums, because
picture this: the blinding glare of stadium lights, the deafening roar of thousands of fans, and at the center of it all, 2 rock legends sharing the stage. On one side, Angus Young, the relentless force behind AC/DC, known for his electrifying riffs and schoolboy persona. On the other, Axl Rose, the unpredictable frontman of Guns N' Roses, notorious for his volatile temper and wild antics. Their paths collided in 2016 when Axl stepped in as AC/DC's frontman during the Rocker Bus Tour after Brian Johnson was forced to step down due to hearing issues. It seemed like a dream collaboration, but behind the scenes, it was anything but harmonious. Now Angus Young has broken his silence, revealing the chaos, conflicts, and personal struggles that turned their partnership into a ticking time bomb. But this isn't just about Axl and Angus. It's about a man whose life has been a whirlwind of feuds, scandals, and self-destruction. This is the untold story of Axl Rose, the brilliance, the madness, and the battles that defined him. The Clash. Angus Young's explosive partnership with Axl Rose. Think of this: Angus Young, the epitome of discipline and professionalism in rock, suddenly thrust into a world of unpredictability with Axl Rose. When Axl joined AC/DC, fans were divided. Some thrilled by the prospect, others skeptical of how the notoriously volatile singer would fit into the tight-knit, no-nonsense world of AC/DC. The truth? It was a disaster waiting to happen. Behind the scenes, tensions flared almost immediately. Angus, used to the steady, reliable presence of Brian Johnson, found himself grappling with Axl's erratic behavior, constant mood swings, and diva-like demands. Rehearsals turned into battlegrounds, with Axl showing up late or not at all, leaving the band and crew in a state of frustration and confusion. Axl's obsession with control clashed with Angus's leadership style. Creative differences erupted, with Axl pushing for changes to set lists, vocal arrangements, and even stage dynamics, territory that had always been firmly under Angus's command. Their arguments weren't just quiet disagreements, they were explosive, filled with shouting matches and slammed doors. The chemistry that fans saw on stage was held together by a fragile thread, stretched thin by clashing egos and unresolved tension. Axl's trail of destruction, feuds within Guns N' Roses. But Angus wasn't the first to feel Axl's wrath. Guns N' Roses was practically built on conflict, with Axl at the center of every storm. The band's original lineup, featuring Slash, Duff McKagan, Izzy Stradlin, and Steven Adler, was a volatile mix of talent and dysfunction. But it was Axl's behavior that often pushed things to the breaking point. The Slash feud, Axl's feud with guitarist Slash, is legendary.
It just, I told you that last time, we want to do a version of Amazing Grace, so we haven't got to it yet. But
what started as creative disagreements spiraled into personal attacks, legal battles, and years of public insults. Axl accused Slash of being a sellout, while Slash described Axl as impossible to work with. Their once powerful musical bond disintegrated into pure hatred, leaving Guns N' Roses fractured for over a decade. Control freak Axl's need for control extended beyond creative decisions. He insisted on being the sole owner of the band's name, alienating his bandmates and creating legal disputes that dragged on for years. His erratic leadership style led to frequent lineup changes, turning Guns N' Roses into a revolving door of musicians who couldn't handle his unpredictable nature. The public meltdowns, Axl's reputation as rock's most unpredictable frontman. Axl Rose wasn't just a rock star, he was a walking powder keg, his temper as legendary as his talent. His conflicts weren't confined to the shadows of backstage drama. They frequently erupted in spectacular fashion, leaving scorched earth and shattered expectations in their wake. Every outburst, every tantrum, every defiant act carved deeper into the mythology of Axl Rose, not just as a musical icon, but as rock's ultimate wild card. His career became a volatile cocktail of brilliance and chaos, each public meltdown adding another layer to the legend of the man who couldn't be tamed. The St. Louis Riot, 1991. This wasn't just a concert gone wrong, it was one of the most infamous implosions in rock history. Mid-performance, Axl spotted a fan brazenly snapping photos with a camera, a move that ignited the fuse of his barely contained rage. Without hesitation, he launched himself into the crowd like a missile, fists flying, his fury unfiltered and raw. Security scrambled, chaos erupted, and within moments Axl stormed off stage, spitting venom over the microphone. "Thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm out of here." But it didn't end there. The crowd's euphoria morphed into blind fury, erupting into a full-scale riot. Dozens were injured, property was destroyed, and the city of St. Louis became an unwilling witness to rock and roll anarchy. The aftermath? Axl slapped with lawsuits, banned from the city, and etched into history as the man who could turn a concert into a war zone. The Chinese democracy fiasco, what was supposed to be Axl's magnum opus, turned into a decade-long odyssey of obsession, dysfunction, and shattered alliances. The album became less about music and more about the unraveling of a perfectionist spiraling out of control. Over 14 years, millions of dollars were funneled into a project plagued by endless delays, rotating band members, and Axl's insatiable demand for unattainable perfection. Studios became battlegrounds. Producers came and went like passing shadows, and fans grew restless, their anticipation curdling into frustration. When Chinese democracy finally limped into the world in 2008, it was met with mixed reviews. A sonic testament to Axl's unchecked ego and the collateral damage of his relentless quest for control. It wasn't just an album, it was a cautionary tale wrapped in guitar riffs and studio overproduction. No show performances. If unpredictability were an art form, Axl Rose was its Picasso. His notorious habit of showing up late, or not at all, to his own concerts became the stuff of legend, infuriating fans, promoters, and even his own bandmates. Hours-long delays were the norm, with restless crowds oscillating between anticipation and outrage. Sometimes he'd arrive, sauntering onto the stage as if time itself bent to his will. Other times he wouldn't show up at all, leaving thousands of furious fans chanting his name with venom instead of adoration. Entire tours became marred by last-minute cancellations, cryptic excuses, and an overwhelming sense of unpredictability. For Axl, it wasn't just about performing. It was about control, about wielding his volatility like a weapon, leaving everyone around him perpetually on edge, never knowing when the next eruption would come. The personal demons, Axl's struggles with family, mental health, and identity. Beneath Axl Rose's explosive stage presence and defiant rock and roll swagger was a man tormented by demons far more relentless than any tabloid headline could capture. Born William Bruce Rose Jr. in the small, unassuming town of Lafayette, Indiana, his childhood was a dark tapestry, woven with threads of abandonment, abuse, and an identity fractured before it ever had the chance to form. When Axl was just 2 years old, his biological father vanished without a trace, leaving behind not just a broken family but a void that would gnaw at Axl's soul for decades. But fate wasn't done with him yet. His stepfather, meant to be a figure of guidance and protection, reportedly became a source of terror, an abusive presence who cloaked the household in fear and confusion. This cocktail of emotional neglect and violence became the foundation upon which Axl's volatile persona was built, a ticking time bomb disguised as a rebellious frontman. Mental health struggles. Axl wasn't just battling the world, he was at war with his own mind. Rumors of his struggles with mental health swirled like a permanent storm cloud over his career, but the reality was far more harrowing than whispers could convey. Episodes of crippling depression would chain him to emotional darkness, while waves of anxiety crashed against his fragile sense of self. Yet, it was his uncontrollable rage that turned his inner turmoil into a public spectacle. This wasn't the theatrical fury fans cheered for on stage. It was raw, unfiltered, and destructive, seeping into every crevice of his life. His inability to tame these emotional wildfires led to notorious public breakdowns, explosive feuds, and erratic behavior that left even his closest allies walking on eggshells. To the outside world, it looked like rock star arrogance. Inside, it was a man drowning in an ocean of psychological torment, gasping for control he never truly had. Isolation. Despite being the face of one of the world's biggest rock bands, Axl Rose lived a life that was paradoxically lonely. Fame, instead of being a gateway to connection, became his fortress and his prison. He constructed walls so high that even old friends and bandmates couldn't climb them, shutting out those who had once been his creative lifeblood. Interviews became rare relics, public appearances fleeting shadows as he retreated into a self-imposed exile that blurred the lines between mystery and tragedy. His inner circle grew smaller and more insular, feeding the myth of Axl Rose the Enigma, while burying William Bruce Rose Jr. deeper beneath layers of paranoia and distrust. It wasn't just physical isolation, it was emotional desolation, a desperate attempt to control the chaos within by shutting out the world beyond. The price of fame, a legacy tainted by conflict. Axl Rose's story is one of extraordinary talent overshadowed by extraordinary chaos. His voice, once hailed as one of the greatest in rock history, became secondary to the headlines about his behavior. His bands fell apart, friendships were destroyed, and his reputation became synonymous with conflict and unpredictability. Angus Young's revelations have peeled back the final layer of the Axl Rose myth, exposing a man who could inspire millions with his music but couldn't escape the darkness within himself. Axl's life is a cautionary tale, a testament to the idea that genius and madness often walk hand in hand. In the end, Axl Rose remains a figure of contradictions, a brilliant frontman whose greatest enemy was never the industry, his bandmates, or even Angus Young. It was himself.